Here's something that might sound strange. Some countries are literally paying their citizens to have babies. Cash bonuses, free childcare, extra vacation days, all just to convince people to have one more child. Sounds a little desperate, right? Almost like something out of a strange policy experiment. But this isn't one country doing something weird. This is happening all around the world. Governments around everywhere are becoming seriously worried about something you probably didn't expect, which is not having enough people. Wait, isn't the world dealing with the opposite problem though? Aren't we worried about overpopulation? Turns out, for a growing number of countries, the real fear isn't too many people, it's too few of them. So why does a country actually need more people in the first place? What really happens when a population starts shrinking? And why are the government willing to spend billions of dollars just to convince people to have kids? Let's dive into it. Chapter 1. The Basic Economic Engine. You first need to think of a country's economy like a giant engine, and people are the fuel that keeps it running. Every person plays two roles at once. They are a worker producing goods and services, and they're also a consumer buying things. More people means more workers available to build products, grow food, and run businesses. It also means more customers buying all of that. Workers create stuff, consumers buy that stuff, and the whole economy keeps moving like that. Picture a small town of just 100 people, a handful of shops, a couple restaurants, and maybe one small factory. Now imagine that town grows to 10,000 people. Suddenly, there's a much bigger workforce, enough to open more shops, build bigger factories, and start new businesses. And there are far more customers to buy from all of that. More people doesn't just mean more workers, it means more of everything, more jobs, more spending, and more opportunity. That's exactly why population growth has historically been tied so closely to economic growth. A bigger population usually means a bigger economy, more innovation, and tax revenue, which is exactly why so many countries actively want their population to keep on growing. But what happens when that growth slows down, or worse, starts reversing? Chapter 2. The Aging Population Problem. This is the problem many countries are facing today, an aging population. It happens when birth rate drops while life expectancy rises, meaning fewer babies are born while more people live longer than ever. Over time, this shifts the entire shape of the country's population towards fewer younger people and a growing number of elderly citizens. Why does this matter so much? Think about how pensions and healthcare for the elderly actually get funded. In most systems, the people actively earning income and paying taxes are the ones to fund these programs for retirees. It's a support chain where younger workers care for the older generation and expect them to be eventually supported the same way themselves. When birth rates drop significantly, that balance starts to break down. Fewer younger workers mean fewer people are paying in, while the number of retirees needing supports keep climbing. That creates a real financial strain on the pension systems and healthcare services. Japan is one of the clearest examples. It has one of the oldest populations in the world, a shrinking workforce, and a rapidly growing elderly population, putting enormous pressure on its pension and healthcare systems. South Korea's situation is even more extreme. Its fertility rate sits around 0.8 births per woman, the lowest of any country on record, and far below the 2.1 needed just to keep a population steady. An aging population isn't just a demographic detail. It's a slow-moving economic problem that puts increasing pressure on the younger generation to support a growing number of retirees, all while the workforce funding that support keeps shrinking. Chapter 3. Why fewer younger people mean more economic trouble. When the number of young people keeps shrinking, it sets up a chain reaction through nearly every part of the economy. The first issue is a shrinking workforce. Younger workers are the one producing goods and running businesses. Without enough of them entering the workforce, companies struggle to keep operations running, let alone expand. The second is reduced consumer spending. People aren't just workers, they're customers too, and younger people are typically the ones buying homes, starting families, and spending on new products. Fewer younger people simply means less overall spending, which slows down the entire industries that depend on it. The third is slower innovation. Younger generations tend to drive new ideas, start businesses, and push industries forward. An older population skewed towards fewer new entrepreneurs and less fresh thinking entering the economy. And finally, there's the growing burden on fewer taxpayers. A shrinking workforce means fewer people paying taxes, while the number of retirees needing pensions and healthcare keeps rising. That forces the government into an unpleasant set of choices, which is to raise taxes on an already shrinking workforce, cut benefits for retirees, or take on more government debt just to keep the whole system running. So put it all together, a shrinking younger population means a smaller workforce, less spending and slower innovation, and a heavier financial burden on whoever's left to keep the economy running, which is exactly why governments are getting increasingly desperate to reverse the trend. Chapter 4. What countries are doing about it. And governments haven't just sat back and watched their population shrink. Many have rolled out bold and sometimes surprising strategies to try and turn things around. The first is straightforward cash incentives for having children. Hungary is one of the most aggressive examples, offering generous tax breaks, cash bonuses, and loan forgiveness for families with multiple children. And the idea is simple, is to make having kids financially easier, and hopefully more families choose to grow their family size. And the results have been mixed at best. Hungary spends one of the highest shares of GDP in the world on these programs, and its birth rate did rise for the first few years, but has slipped back down, showing just how hard this problem is just to solve with money alone. South Korea tells a similar story, and given it has the world's lowest birth rate, it's arguably the highest stake version of this experiment. The government has poured well over $200 billion into cash payments for new parents, and subsidized childcare and housing benefits over the past few decades. The birth rates did rise for the first time in a few years, but most demographic experts see that as a temporary echo of the delayed pandemic-era marriages rather than the proof of this strategy actually working in the long term. The second strategy is expanding parental support systems, which includes extended paid leave, subsidized daycare, and flexible work policies. Sweden and other Nordic countries have leaned heavily into this approach, making it easier for parents, especially working mothers, to balance having children with staying in the workforce. It's worth noting that this hasn't fully solved the underlying problem either. Sweden's own birth rate has been declining in recent years too. These policies are genuinely good for supporting the parents and children. They're just not a guaranteed fix for how many children are born in the first place. The third, and often more politically charged strategy is immigration. Instead of relying purely on birth rates, some countries has actively recruited younger workers from other nations to fill labor shortages and support the aging population. Canada and Germany have both used immigration policies specifically to bring in working-age adults, helping to balance out the aging population while filling gaps in the labor force. None of these strategies come with any guarantees. Cash incentives don't always convince people to have more kids, since housing costs, career pressures, and lifestyle choices often outweigh the financial bonuses. Immigration fills the workforce gaps effectively, but can spark political and cultural debate. There's no perfect fix here, just a mix of imperfect strategies, each with its own strengths and limits. Chapter 5. The bottom line. Now, it all comes back to the question that we want to answer. Why does every country want more people? It comes down to needing to keep the economic engine running. More workers, more spenders, more innovation, and enough young people to support a growing elderly population. Without that balance, country risk shrinking workforce, slower growth, and mounting financial pressure on the people that's left behind. That's exactly why governments around the world are throwing everything they've got at this problem. Cash incentives, better parental support, and immigration policy, all in an attempt to keep their populations from shrinking too fast. But as we've seen, there's no perfect solution, just a mix of strategies with mixed results. So the next time you hear about a country offering cash for babies or opening its doors to more immigrants, you'll know exactly why. It's not just about growing a population, it's about keeping an entire economy alive and thriving for generations to come.